project together. We borrowed the idea from the Free State Project, moving libertarians to New Hampshire. We got the idea that, well, if we move Christian paleo-conservatives who are in states and locales where autonomy for that state really is not an option at some point any time, maybe in the near future, then perhaps concentrating their efforts in one particular small state would be beneficial.
I'm sorry, I went to government school. What is paleo-Christian?
Paleo-conservative?
Yeah, paleo-conservative.
All right. The best way to explain it is Jeffersonian conservatism. You've got the neoconservatives today of the Hamiltonian school, where big centralized government is in vogue. But of course, those of us who are states' rights oriented, like decentralized government, would fall under paleo-conservative. So I make that distinction because there are Christians who consider themselves conservatives, but they favor very large centralized government. They're just as much part of the problem. So our project is designed for those who have a mentality like what's being expressed here today. The uniqueness of our project is that it does focus specifically on local and state politics, not national politics. That's something that sets us apart from other organizations. Of course, simply the strategy of concentrating efforts in one place is unique as well. Now, the reason I point to that strategy of why we essentially started to flesh it out and do it in the last 3 years. We need one brick out of the wall, and we really think at our project we're moving people to South Carolina. We believe that could be the first brick out of the wall. Maybe Vermont, the way y'all have such momentum up there. Frankly, I don't care which brick it is. Might be Alaska, might be Hawaii, but we all are that much nearer success when that first brick comes out of the wall.
Or for Alaska, you'll have to have somebody very dedicated, just client-wise.
Well, I'm not suggesting we change our project to focus on Alaska, but our focus is on South Carolina. So if you live somewhere where you don't see these principles being a potential in your hometown or in your state, perhaps South Carolina, where there's some very conservative counties we're working on, that might be a bit easier, particularly if Alaska's too cold. So I did, one benefit of going later in this discussion is I have the opportunity to comment on some of the things that have been said and how our project fits into that. Really, our projects are complement to what y'all are doing in other organizations. Our projects are complement to what the League is doing in South Carolina. The League had many members at the recent picnic social we had last weekend in Donald, South Carolina. So there's a hand-in-glove fit with our project and other independence-minded organizations, and we provide members, particularly in South Carolina. Or, we send out alerts to our members. We now have 1,500 members nationwide. We have over 200 members in South Carolina. That's what's on our rolls, but oftentimes a member does not sign up with their spouse, so we probably can increase those numbers significantly when looking at family units. I lost my train of thought there getting on the membership. But we're a complement to what these other organizations are doing, and the emphasis on local and state politics is exactly what I don't see Mr. Wharton around. Mike Wharton mentioned what's going on at the county level in Alabama. Absolutely essential. The gentleman over here mentioned starting at the county level. That's what we're doing with Christian Exodus. We've identified 6 counties in South Carolina that are very right for these principles and concepts and putting them in place at the local level, particularly Anderson County, where we have a couple friends on county council already, and a lot of activist organizations. I would go on to say, to suggest about the ideas of interposition and nullification. It came up, well, when has that been done? Of course, South Carolina is very famous for 1832 with a nullification crisis that actually was successful. The whole point of interposition is to bring the federal government to the bargaining table and have a discussion about constitutionality, and that's the job of our local and state magistrates to cause that type of conflict and force that debate. That was resolved peacefully as there was a compromise in Congress back then. So that's the best example. There are many others, but that is the road to independence. You have to go through interposition and nullification in order to get there, so as to make a claim for a reason for it. You have to demonstrate a reason to people that, well, why is it we need to leave the Union? This is what we're attempting to do in the way of self-governance, self-determination. We're not being allowed to do it. So you make that case through interposition and nullification. So we see that as essential at the local level to drive the independence movement. You must have interposition nullification. Now, on that subject, it's important to note where we're at right now. When Social Security legislation was challenged in the 1930s, the U.S. Supreme Court made a statement. I can't remember the case. I think it was 1937. It actually referenced the debates between Jefferson and Hamilton, and the court said that this is settled. Hamilton won. So not since 1930s at least, we really can go back to 1865, as Mr. Kennedy mentioned. That's the Hamiltonian case won. Lincoln was a proponent of it. That the federal government sees it as a settled matter. So what are we going to do to create the conflict that drives this debate once again? That forces people to wake up and bring about the debate of whether Jefferson or Hamilton was right at the very beginning. And that's what we can do at the county level, driving that the county sheriff, the county councils, creating some type of conflict with illegal federal activity and legislation. Now, one thing I wanted to comment on as well, and how I think all of our groups are very well positioned. There's a book recently written by John Dean called Broken Government. Citing the fact that Washington, D.C. is just simply not working. That's the whole point of this convention, but what's extremely interesting is he cited an opinion poll published by CNN last year. Opinion Research Corporation did a poll over 3 days, October 13th to October 15th of last year. And they asked this question to Americans: do you agree or disagree that our system of government is broken? And the really important portion of this question is the second portion, and cannot be fixed. 71% of Americans said that our system of government is broken and cannot be fixed. Therefore, we've got only one place to go. That's the Declaration of Independence of 1776, where we have a right to alter or abolish a form of government. If it cannot be fixed, it simply must be changed. So we might be a group of delegates representing the view that small percentage of Americans who are aware of this potential, but 71% of Americans agree with us. Now it's a matter of getting the word out to them. That was a scientific poll, mind you. Okay, others have stated that very succinctly, as well as Mr. Kennedy here, about the fact that our government is broken. And then the last thing I'll talk about with Christian Nexus and cooperation of the other groups. We're a nationwide organization focused on concentration in one locale. That enables us to work with organizations in other parts of the country. We have members that are showing up on our radar screen that are in your parts of the country. There's no reason we can't direct them to you as well to work alongside you. So we'd like to cooperate in that way. It was mentioned that we must have a plan. And one thing I really would like to see come out of this at some point. We discussed a little bit last year, but at some point there must be some type of executive cooperation among organizations, I think. And I don't know if any of your organizations have this problem, but is anyone short on time and money? We only need two things, just time and money. Maybe between our organizations we can come up with that, and at some point I think we've got to have a full-time person who is coordinating the various organizations, and whether that be a volunteer who's retired, or whether we pool our resources and staff that person. However we could do that, Christian Nexus would certainly, I would personally like to write a check in that direction.